Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Monday, January 31st. The year's 2022. Let's talk trading. It's the end of the month, so we're doing the monthly wrap up. As always, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. I hope you had your risk management in place all month long, so you never lost any more on any one particular trade than you were willing to lose. Looking at the monthly, so far we are red, 91 pips below the monthly open, 78 off the low, and 313 off the high. As far as the weekly goes, all the gaps have filled. We've taken out the weekly pivot point. And we are back to the opening range, which is the first day of the month. We're back inside there. We crossed over at the 34.30 just a few minutes ago. As you can see, we're 90 pips below the yearly open here, which is the same as the month since this is January. We are right back to the inside bar low for the month and high for the previous day. Very interesting that they overlap here. So there we have the inside bar from 3 months ago. We had an inside bar 2 weeks ago, and on the daily, inside bar 1 day ago. Range, we've got 5 pairs over 100 pips with the pound clocking in at 62. The buy zone, very interesting. These past couple of hours here, price had come pushing way down, went through it close to the open and turned right around and rocketed right back up. So it must be the end of the month where they're sweeping out the stops, setting up closing positions, opening new positions. So it's usually a good day for day trading. Red rats, get ready to feast. We've got enough range. You just have to be careful and remember where price is on the chart compared to things like daily, previous days, highs and lows. As mentioned earlier, we've taken out that weekly pivot. We've crisscrossed the monthly pivot a few times. And for the daily pivot, we open below the pivot, so it says near the pivot short. Pivot was down here, and that was not a good plan for today because it moved up. Monthly pivot taken out. This week's pivot taken out on the first day of the week, which happens to be the last day of the month. So now we've got a weekly pivot from last week above, hasn't been taken out, and a weekly pivot from 5 weeks ago below that hasn't been taken out. So we'll see which one of these gets taken out. The wick zone, once again, knowing where price is, knowing price doesn't like staying in the wick zone. So even here it came down, came out, came back in, came out the other side. And looking at the lower high, higher low trade, you can see here we put a 3-ball in on M1 with a long trigger at 34.31. So there was some enjoyment there. And as you can see, if you took that entry, there wasn't much drawdown. The pound got into the launch pad, which is the 40s. I like to call that the launch pad. But as you can see, it's failed to launch. And in yesterday's video, I mentioned the price near indicator. This is the one I'm talking about, where in English, it tells me, I'm just 2.6 pips below weekly pivot, now 2.1, 2.5, without having all those lines on my chart. And of course, you can set this for how many bars back you want to look and at what time frames. You can see we got close to the ATR, but not quite. But we are in the upper rat zone at the moment. And we crossed above the previous day's high. And we put in a high for the day 5 hours ago, right there. So we're kind of looking at the price action off of that level. I was sharing an old indicator that I updated slightly. So you can see today, right now, we've had 5 closes above this price for today plus the previous day, 5 closes above this price. So that's telling me that price doesn't want to go much higher because it's already broken out. So we'll just have to wait and see. In fact, it looks like this M30 candle might turn out to be an inside bar, but we don't know. We've still got 22 minutes left, so pretty much anything could happen. It could go on to make new highs. It could go down and make new lows. Oh, and somebody was asking about indicator 2. What exactly is indicator 2? I'll explain it again. It's simply the EMA 5, and the diamonds just say whether or not price has closed above it, or is above it, or below it. And the whole theory is, especially on the lower time frames, or even on the higher time frames, once you just want to get in on the right side of the trade and ride the dots all the way up. Somebody asked if I could change it so I guess only these 2 dots appear, or maybe only this dot would appear because it changed color, and maybe only this dot appeared. It's like, I'm not really sure what advantage that's going to give you. So I just don't see why I need to do that. But if you can explain it, then maybe I can do it, but I just don't see any advantage there. Because when you're trading, you're pretty much looking at this dot or this diamond anyway. So, or if you're looking at the multimeters, so here you can see on the lower time frames, we've got now on that M1 price is going above. It's crossed above the indicator 2, and here on M5 it was just crossing below. So I guess if I shift over to those time frames, you can see it's crossed above. That's what the green indicates. And then here you can see it just crossed below, and that's what the magenta indicates. I'm sorry, what the red would indicate over here. Because Here it just, on the indicator 2, that plots, it's just going to show you either magenta or aqua. But over here in the multimeter, I've got some more colors, more code in there to let me know if it's crossing above or below. Because over here, you can see it with your own eyes. And so, yes, it is a squiggly, but I find it handy if you want to stay in the trade for a long time and you just want a nice trigger. So, for example, here, if you got in this trade and with this close, you would have popped out here and you would have given back maybe, what, 6 pips, but you would have had a very nice run, as opposed to using something else like maybe you said, well, price action, lower high, lower low, let me exit out, and then you would have left a whole bunch on the table. Of course, you could say, well, that's hindsight. Well, yes, it is. But this is what usually plays out. So you just have to learn to trust those indicator 2 dots or diamonds. And I guess that's one of the problems that you might want to solve is trust. See, you have to trust the system. If you trust the system, then when it works, then you're going to trust it even more, and it's a positive spiral. But what happens is you trust the system, and maybe on your first or second trade, it goes against you. And then all of a sudden, you stop trusting the system just because of a bad break or just, market conditions. And then you go off on a tangent, and then you kick yourself when you see if you would have just stuck with the system, kept it simple, you would have profited. So what this is telling me is you can see the upper time frames. Here are the middle time frames. This is daily, that BH4, and I can go ahead and put those headings on. And if you wonder why I didn't have the headings, it's because once again, I don't want to overthink this. I just want to do what it tells me. And if I start reading and seeing this and go, well, on H4, and I'll start to interpret because I know how my brain works. And I didn't want that. I just wanted to look at the colors like, okay, when these go bearish, which would either be red or magenta, that's the time when you want to exit your longs. And then when it turns back and then all these are the same, that's when you'd want to enter your longs. So for example, here, if you trigger out on the M5 and then you trigger back in when they turn aqua again. Why? Because this is what this trend is here, or this what the price is doing. It's pretty much going up, going up, going up. So, I've always stated that the trend's in the mind of the trader. That's the only place that exists. So that's why I usually like to use the word bias. So trade with the daily bias. And you might say it's playing with semantics, but the thing is, to me, what words you use is what triggers your actions. So you don't want to use something that's going to work against you. So for me, using the word trend works against me, using bias works for me. And you just it might not work just the opposite for you. So you have to figure out what works for you, because it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. I hope everybody had a profitable month to start the year off. This is the Rumpled One, over and out.